All right, everyone. And now joining us via phone, because that's how we're doing everything nowadays. We have Eric Marcs on the line with us. Eric, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Matt?
Doing well, doing well. Obviously, we're going to talk about the music, but the first thing I do need to ask you, and this is how so many interactions begin nowadays. How are you holding up with everything that's going on?
I'm actually doing really, really well. My creativity has jumped 100-fold since all this began. I've been out of work now for going on almost 2 weeks,
Yeah?
and it's been 2 weeks of just hanging out in my little recording studio in my parents' basement and just trying to create something that sounds right and feels right for kind of what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I feel like I'm noticing that too. A lot of creative people that I talk to, that's kind of how they're dealing with everything. Is just it's more time to create art, and I think that's the best way to deal with anything that's negative or can be negative, and what we're going through right now, of course, is unprecedented in our lifetimes. To be able to take that, to be able to take the current situation and do something constructive with it, and create, to use this time to create. I think whether it's what we're dealing with now or anything bad, anything negative that happens just in your life as an individual or collectively, like what we're experiencing now, to be able to use that and create something with it, I think is just a wonderful way to deal with it, and I think that's how a lot of people are dealing with it. Certainly, a lot of the musicians I talk to seem to be handling it that way. Do you notice that as well? I mean, obviously, I assume you're communicating with other creative people online and whatnot. I mean, is that kind of your impression that's how people are dealing with it?
Yeah, most definitely. I think now more than ever, people are having to find deeper, meaningful ways to connect with their fan bases.
Yeah.
And especially with the hurt, really, and the healing that needs to happen from all this has really become a focal point for the music. And also just, a little bit of joy and a little bit of happiness is always something that people need, not only just to remind people about hope, but just to have a little bit of fun with it. I've seen a lot of people doing that online and, live streams and creating music just to have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, it's funny. Yesterday on the show, Jenny and I were talking about this. How we're actually very fortunate. I mean, as much as challenging as the current situation is, and that's putting it mildly, but we are fortunate that it happened at a time when. I don't know how old you are, but I'm old enough to vividly remember when there was no internet, and now we have all this technology, and for something like this to happen at a time when we have all this technology, as opposed to 20 or 25 years ago when we didn't have all of this, I think the timing of this is really fortuitous, especially again, if you're a musician, or if you're a radio host, or if you're if you're anything involving technology, you can still be productive, you can still be creative, and not just be like I said, 25 years ago, everybody would kind of just be stuck at home wondering what to do, and
Absolutely.
You wouldn't be as connected with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So we're fortunate in that way. And let me ask you this. So now you have your single, Everything. Is that which is a great track. It's very catchy, very melodic. It kind of reminds me. I don't know if he's an influence for you or not, but it reminds me a little bit of Billy Joel. But it's very sort of accessible, to use a radio term.
Yeah.
And that how new is that? Is that fairly recent?
That was the last single that came out, that one came out in February. The last single that came out was in March. I've been doing this thing, trying to put a new song out every month. So that one came out in February.
Okay, yeah. So that's still So it's only April. So that's very new. And then you've also got an album called Hope, which obviously you see that title and you think, well, that's appropriate for
Yeah.
what we're going through now too. Now, so I assume Hope was already out, and then you kind of started fresh with, because everything is not on Hope, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And then
Yeah,
oh,
I
go ahead.
really wanted to try and challenge myself to put out, new music as often as I could, so that I could sort of, give my fan base more music than just a standalone album, one time, and then a year later put out another album and just sort of do nothing
Yeah.
for a year. But I challenged myself to try and put out a new song every month so that, people could still listen to new music, and so far so good.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's always interesting to me to talk to artists about what goes into those decisions, because and again, I remember when I was growing up, it was very much, bands or solo artists, that there was a blueprint, that you would follow. They would release an album and then go on a tour, and then release another album and go on a tour. Maybe there was an EP, every once in a while someone would release an EP, not very often. You wouldn't see a lot of those. But today, again, because of the internet, you have all these options. You can put out an album, you can put out an EP, you could just do singles. So it's interesting. So you, after putting out that album, now that you've put out a single, do you intend to, I would guess because you're in this creative mode, do you intend to put out more singles in the coming months?
Yeah, of course. From now until, the end of 2020, I hope to put out a new single every month.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
And then is there a plan to ultimately put those together into an album, or do you think you'll just keep releasing singles at this point?
Well, it's funny because the amount of freedom that I have from, just focusing on one song every month, I have more time to write new music. And so I think out of this, 2020 season, and out of the amount of time that I have, I think after 2020, I should have enough to put some of the singles on an album, and then some of the newer stuff that I'm writing, and sort of do a mix and match of stuff that can go on an album in 2021.
Yeah, because I would imagine, obviously, if you're putting together an album, you probably want to have some sort of cohesion among the songs. Is there with Hope? And I haven't had a chance to listen to the whole thing yet, but is there like a particular theme with that and something that caused you to decide those 9 songs all go together in some form or fashion?
Yeah, Hope was a really special project because, like you said earlier about music coming out of sort of darkness and uncertain times and what have you, Hope came out of a 2019 that was just a brand new life for me. I was in a lot of new situations, a lot of uncertain months, and I was just writing music that I enjoyed listening to, honestly.
Yeah.
And as the songs came together, they almost seemed like chapters in a book. So I named them, what the names of the chapters of my life probably would have been.
Oh.
So you have the Riptide was the first song, and Anchor was the second song. So you sort of have these nautical themes and these different points in the journey of last year where I came to where I am now.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. The chapters concept, I like that a lot. I mean, was what you know you don't have to get into it, but I mean, was 2019, was that a challenging time for you?
It was a new time. It was a different sort of. I had a lot of people leave my life and a lot of people enter my life. So I had new, old friendships leave and new friendships emerge, and I had to deal with realities that I had never had to deal with before, a sort of adult things. I'm 23 and I had been living with my parents for so long. I was living in a new place and I just had to deal with these new realities that I never had to before.
Sure. And that, obviously, again, to take that experience and do something creative with it, which, I mean, not necessarily a negative experience. Obviously, it sounds like it was positive. I mean, new beginnings can be very positive, and they can be overwhelming and intimidating too. But what a wonderful way to deal with it, through creating an album. And I do love that song Riptide. That was, it kicks off the album. So that was actually, I'd listened to that even before I listened to the single Everything. And what a great track. It's got a real sort of energy to it that's very, very cool. And had you released anything else? Is there anything prior to Hope that is available, or was that the beginning of your recording career in a professional sense?
Yeah, that was really the beginning. It was the first thing that I really felt comfortable sharing with everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very proud of it, and I'm proud to continue the work. And I've sort of remastered some of the songs on that record as well, and I hope to release them sort of in a new light maybe in the coming months. Outstanding.
Yeah. Well, depending on how things go, you might have plenty of time,
Yeah, most definitely.
And are you intent on remaining a solo artist, or are there any plans to to join a band or start a band, or maybe you have another project that I don't know about? I don't know, but what's your status there?
Yeah, if you listen to because you've listened to the songs on the record, you know that, everything is done with a full band.
Yeah.
And the magic of recording these days is I can play all those instruments and then put them all together. So it's kind of nice to be able to do that, but when I go to play them out live, it doesn't really work that way because I can't play all those instruments live. So yeah. I would absolutely love to have other musicians join me. It's just really tough these days to find people that have a similar vision as you do and similar goals and similar music styles. And chemistry is so important with musicians. It's hard to find people that you just kind of mesh with,
mm-hmm.
and they just know what you're thinking and they know where you're going. It's really, really hard to find musicians like that these days.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, do you, not currently, obviously, because no one is, but were you playing out at all, just doing like maybe a solo acoustic thing with any of this material, or no?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that I was doing was open mics around the area. I was doing 3 or 4 open mics in New Hampshire, a couple in Massachusetts. And that was really just the way that I was trying to get my music out there, trying to share it with as many people as I could. And through that, we were doing open mics in restaurants, coffee houses, bars, and stuff like that. So I got a couple of gigs that way. And unfortunately, with everything that's been happening, I had 3 or 4 get canceled just as things were really starting to ramp up for me.
Yeah.
But I'm excited, to get back to it. I still have one that's scheduled for May 15th, actually in Kenmore Square in Boston, but I hope that's still going to happen. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
So it's probably not, but the hope is that, pun intended, the hope is that it'll still go on.
Yeah. We'll try to throw some positive energy at it. Yeah.
Thanks.
I sure hope so. I certainly want things to get back to normal, as we all do. Yeah, it's such a strange time that we're living through. But like I said, I mean, you're dealing with it through creating, and I think that that's the best. I mean, that's the best therapy anyone could have. You by the way. So I was reading your bio on Spotify. So you started music pretty young, right? You were 10 years old when you first started learning to play and all of that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I wish I'd had that kind of discipline when I was a kid. I started much later. I didn't really get started until high school. And then, so what was the first instrument you learned how to play?
My parents got me an acoustic guitar for my 10th birthday, and I started taking lessons playing acoustic, and then 5th grade I started to sing, in the choir, and after that it just sort of, blossomed into, I learned to play the electric guitar, which is honestly a whole separate beast that I didn't even realize. I thought it was pretty much the same as acoustic, but it really is a totally different animal.
Yeah.
And then piano after that. And your voice is sort of like, it's an ever-evolving instrument. I have sort of had to relearn how to sing 3 or 4 times, even in the span of 15 years that I've been singing.
Oh, now that's interesting. Now, what do you mean? Expand on that. You've had to relearn how to sing several times. For what reason?
So I guess really in 5th grade, my voice is obviously a lot different, just because of puberty and the changing of the body and that sort of thing. So after probably 8th grade, I had to really relearn the mechanics of where my voice would sit.
Oh.
And then after that, I got really sick, I think, sophomore year of high school, and I lost my voice for about 2 weeks. So I wasn't able to practice singing. So I lost a lot of the range that I had, and I lost a lot of the high register that I had, my falsetto. I lost my falsetto, so I had to relearn how to do those things.
Interesting. Huh.
And it's tough really on the brain, because it's something that you have to just repetition practice over and over and over again until your brain and your lungs and your diaphragm and your vocal cords figure out how to do again.
Right.
So it's been very interesting. And then over the last year, as I've been recording this record, my voice has changed again, and it's sort of just learning how to breathe again, learning how to, sit on top of notes. A lot of these songs are very high
yeah.
in my range, and they weren't musical notes that I could sing a year ago or 2 years ago. So I've had to learn how to support those notes.
Okay. Oh, interesting. So so for you, it's been kind of an evolving thing. Now, after you recovered from being sick, how long did it take you to kind of get back to where you were prior to being sick? I mean, was that like a long process, or were you able to get back there pretty quickly vocally?
I remember it being a few months. I
Wow.
remember thinking I'm never going to be able to hit, the falsetto notes that I was, and it just wasn't pretty for a long time. And I was like, wow, I'm just not going to have that ability. But, honestly, just after playing with it and a couple of months, one day I was like, oh, I think I can do it again. And again, just after repetition,
Sure.
it just comes back.
Yeah. Wow, that's that's interesting. And when it came back, did you notice that you sounded different? I mean, obviously, so you regained your ability, to sing falsetto and everything. But was it different to your ears, or did you just kind of get back to the same place that you were prior to getting sick and sounded the same?
It it was very different. And as I talk about it, I remember people, even now, they listen to, I have old recordings and stuff on my computer that I've shared with friends, and, you know, just sort of as a fun thing. This is what I sounded like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, the change in mechanics, again, the support that happens and makes notes sound mature, and just the maturity of the spirit that sings those songs has changed drastically since I started the honest journey of really putting together music to share with people.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Now, and everything is everything that you've recorded, is that all you? Are there any other musicians, or do you do everything?
I do everything. On the song Hope on the record, there is another guitar player in there, but everything else has all been me, and I'm proud to say that, and I say that humbly. I really am glad that I was able to do all those things myself, and it really was just necessity breeds invention. I really just didn't have anybody really to reach out to and make music with, so I had to do it all myself.
Yeah. But out of that necessity, of course, you know, you're able to, because not everyone's in that position where you're able to create something that really sounds close to or exactly like what you hear in your head. You know, I mean, I've never, you know, I'm a musician, but I've played in a lot of bands, and it was always a collaborative effort. And I know that, you know, more often than not, if I would bring in an idea to a band situation for a song, if I had a melody or a riff or something, you know, what we would end up with at the end of the process would, of course, somewhat resemble what I came in with, but it wouldn't be the same exactly, of course, and sometimes that was a good thing, and sometimes it was kind of like, oh, that's a little frustrating. That isn't exactly what I envisioned. But when you can do what you do, where you're in full control, I mean, that must be incredibly satisfying and liberating to be able to do it and truly do it your way.
Yeah.
And everything is written by you. You haven't collaborated with anyone songwriting wise.
Yeah, everything is me.
Wow, good for you, man. That's incredible. And on the one song where you did bring in another guitar player, what led to that?
He and I had played together before at churches, and that's where I really, you know, got my start. I was playing at a church in Salem, New Hampshire for a long time, and I just met him, you know, through that whole circle. That's a really tight-knit, you know, group of musicians. I mean, that's a family of musicians, really, is like, you know, church playing musicians. And so we wrote the chorus of that song together, and he ended up playing, you know, electric guitar on it. Again, that song too, Hope, has changed drastically from, I think we wrote that one maybe 2 years ago now. And it's changed even from its first inception to the version you hear on the record, and then even to how I play it today. It's a little bit different. So it's been a fun journey just for that song in and of itself.
Now, do you have anything, do any of these songs go do you have anything that you wrote a long time ago, or is everything that's come out on the album, is it all recent, all from what you you know, springing out of what you went through in 2019?
Yeah, it's all really recent. It's all I wrote it all in 2019.
Okay.
And, you know, finished it at the end of 2019 and put it out right at the beginning of 2020.
So you probably have a lot of, because you know, you started very young, you probably have a lot of material that you've written that you've never, you know, that you've never even recorded, I would imagine. You've probably got a lot of songs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the interesting piece is I really have tried to write songs that I enjoy listening to, and I usually write to myself.
Yeah.
I write lyrics that I need to hear. I write melodies that I enjoy. And so some songs are just for me. I'll never put them out because they're just my own soul searching for answers. They're my own spirit expressing itself. And I'm not really trying to share that part with others. It's just for me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
What I do share with people, I feel comfortable, and I feel like it's what other people need to hear and will enjoy hearing and will resonate with.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Now, do you have any kind of an ETA on when the next single is going to be out, or are you kind of keeping that open-ended a little bit?
April 26th. I'm trying
Ooh.
to keep myself to the 26th of every month. So Hope came out January 26th. Everything came out February 26th. A song called Leave with my friend Ashley Gerke. That one came out March 26th. And so April 26th will be a song called Rest of My Life.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Is it already done, or are you still working on it?
It's pretty much done. I actually did a couple of final tweaks just this morning and listened to it in my car. And, I mean, if I can toot my own horn for a second, it sounds really good. I'm happy with where it is.
Yeah.
But I'll probably work on it right up until I have to put it up online and get it processed.
Yeah. By the way, so I'm curious, do you always do that? Do you always see how it sounds in the car? Is that kind of, because I know that I'm someone who, and I haven't, it's been a long time since I've played in a band, but that's always kind of been my own personal metric is it's like, let's see how it sounds on the stereo in the car. If it sounds good while you're driving, then you know it's right.
I think that's definitely true. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of truth to that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like most people are listening to their music in the car.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think if it sounds good there, it'll sound good pretty much everywhere. I try and listen to it. I put it on my phone so I can listen to it on my phone.
Yeah.
I put it in my headphones so I can listen to it through my headphones. And you can definitely hear different pieces and different frequencies when you listen to it in different places.
Oh, yeah.
So I enjoy doing it that way so that I can hear every little bit of the song and make it perfect that way.
Yep, absolutely. So April 26th, now, so somebody else is on you with that track you said, Leave, that's going to be coming out?
Yeah, the one that came out just in March 26th. I wrote the song, and my friend Ashley, I told her one day, again, just as my voice has been changing, I was telling her one day, I don't know if it really sounds good, with my voice singing it. And she was joking around. She said, I could sing it. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And she was, confident enough to actually come in the studio. She's never recorded anything before. She's, been singing her whole life really just for fun. But we got in the studio and we did it. And I mean, it came out really, really great. She sounds amazing.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Very cool. Is she doing all the lead vocal, or do you split that up?
She sings, the first verse, and she sings the first chorus alone.
Okay.
I jump in, I sing the second verse, and then we sing the rest of the song together. We have some really nice harmonies, and the song started with just my vocal when I wrote it.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to have anybody else singing it, and the evolution of where the song is today, what you hear on the single, is totally different from the way I wrote it. But like you said earlier, it was a happy accident. It turned out way better than I could have expected.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome. So April 26th, we'll have to have you back on for an update when that comes out to remind people. And that's fantastic. Good for you. Do you find that giving yourself kind of that deadline, is that helpful to you? Because I know some musicians really like to have, it kind of forces them to get things done creatively, and some musicians really don't like that. Can't work with any kind of structure like that. I mean, do you find it's helpful?
I do. I find it helpful only because I've talked to a lot of other musicians who write their own music but have never really been comfortable putting it out for other people to listen to.
Yeah.
Because it's a terribly vulnerable place.
Right.
And it's a place where you have to be, honestly, either really stupid or really confident in how it sounds in order to put it out to really let people have their way with it. Honestly, you never know what can happen when you put your whole heart and soul and your music out there for people to listen to.
Yeah.
So having the deadline forces me to step out of my comfort zone every month and put it out, even though it might not be 1,000% perfect. I try and get it as perfect as I possibly can before I put it out, and then when it's out, it's out. And that's why I went back and remastered some of those songs on Hope, because, you know, when January 26th came around, it went out, and as perfect as I could possibly get it. And then when I sat back down with it, a month later, 2 months later, I thought, you know, there were other things that I can do with this. and I sat back down to make it even more perfect. So yeah, the deadline helps really just throw you off the cliff into the great unknown and say, what's going to happen is going to happen.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Eric, this has been wonderful. Now, before we wrap up, please let our listeners know exactly where they should go online to find you, to keep up with what you're doing, to get access to your music, and anything else that you want them to be aware of. Because, you know, obviously, you're going to be picking up some fans from today. So, please let the audience know anything they need to know about where to find you online.
Yeah, the best place really to get all the updates on everything is really my Instagram, and that's at Eric Marcs Music. And I post, new songs there every day. I really try and post something there. So that's really the best way. I also have a musician page on Facebook, which is Eric Marcs. So that's ERICMARCS. That's how you spell my name. And on Spotify, Apple Music, I'm the only Eric Marcs on there, so it makes it kind of easy to find it. Again, it's really nice to have a name that sort of nobody else has.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so ERICMARCS.
Very good. Yeah, it's funny. I have my last name. Jenny and I were talking about this last night. My last name is very rare. Connarton's a very rare last name, but there is another Matt Connarton here in New Hampshire, and he's my uncle. And
there you go. Yeah.
And occasionally, it happens every year on his birthday. There will be people who are wishing him a happy birthday, thinking that it's me. And it's like, okay, well, the guy in the picture is clearly not me, but whatever.
Right.
Maybe they think I've just aged 20 years all of a sudden, because I guess he kind of looks like me, but just much older. But anyway, all right. Well, Eric, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much, my friend. And once all this is over, and things do get back to normal, I would love to have you, come up to the station and join us live, and we can meet in person and do a sit down that way. But thank goodness we're able to do it this way. In the meantime, this has been great talking with you today.
Yeah, this has been really special for me. Thank you so much for doing this. And I do look forward to getting in there and meeting you in person and doing this again. Thank you.
Absolutely.